Today we will be graphing linear equations using data tables. And you may remember that we did something very similar to this at the beginning of the school year. So what I'd like you to do is write down, remember, a linear equation has this word in it. And a linear equation is an equation whose graph is a line. So take a minute to write down the definition. If you need to, pause up the... Alrighty, so here we go. This is a linear equation. Y equals x plus 2. So what we're going to do for these first couple ones, I want to see your work written out. So for the first one, x is negative 3. So in the middle box here, I'm going to write, my rule is y equals x plus 3. So in my first box, I'm going to write y equals x is negative 3 plus 3. And if you don't know that answer, then what I want you to do is use your calculator and type in 3 plus negative 3. And we get 0. So we're going to put a 0 here for the y. And now we're going to write it like an ordered pair so that I can graph it over here. I've got my x, which was given to me, and by plugging that x into the equation, I now have my y value. So when x is negative 3, in this equation, y is going to be 0. So I'm going to write down negative 3, 0. And I'm going to do the same thing for my next one, except this time x is negative 1. So y equals negative 1 plus 2. I stick that in the calculator. Negative 1 plus 2 is a positive 1. Positives have the advantage by 1. So for this situation, when x is negative 1, y is 1. And then for my next one, x is 0 this time. So where x is, I'm going to put a 0 plus 3. And 0 plus 3 is 3. And so for this situation, when x is 0, y is 3. And I'm going to finish up my last two. So y equals 1 plus 3, which is 4. So when x is positive 1, y is 4. Y equals 2 plus 3. 2 plus 3 is 5. So for this equation, when x is 2, y will always be 5. And now that I have an ordered pair, I'm going to take it over here and I'm going to graph it. So where x is negative 3, remember these are our positives. Positive 1, positive 2, 3, 4, so on. These are our positives up here. Positive 1, 2, 3, 4. This is my x. This is my y. Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3 is on that side. And negative 1 is down here. Negative 2, negative 3. So for my first one, negative 3, 0, I'm going to go back, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to stay right there. And then for the next one, x is negative 1, positive 1. So I come over 1 and up 1. And then 0, 3, and then 1, positive 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you notice, my dots are making a line, my points. And positive 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I'm going to take my straight edge. I'm using a line up here. And we want to, let me get my ruler. So I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to line it up with my points. And then I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to draw a straight line. Now we don't go point to point. This is not dot to dot. So we got to start way down here and come up way up high because there are many points on this graph. But we were only just given these. So there goes my line straight through. And because I use that, oops, sorry guys. These extra arrows up here. And because this one doesn't have an arrow then, I need to draw an arrow here, and that shows that this line goes on and continues on. Now I'm going to step down here to my next equation. So this is a linear equation because when I remove the ruler, I have these points have made a straight line. So I'm going to slide my ruler up, slide down here. So for this equation, it says y equals negative x plus 7. So negative x just means the opposite of x. So for this one, a negative 2 really makes a positive 2. And I forgot to write my equation there. Y equals negative x plus 7. So positive 2 plus 7 is 9. So when x is negative 2, y is going to be 9. And for this next one, y equals negative 1, so that really makes it a positive 1, plus the 7 makes an 8. So when x is negative 1, y is positive 8. Y equals, now negative 0, there's no such thing, it's just 0, plus 7, and that gives me 7. So when x is 0, y is 7 for this equation. Next one, y equals negative x, so that's a negative 1 plus 7. If you need to, put that in your calculator. But the positives have the advantage by 6. So when x is positive 1, y is positive 6. And now number 2, when x is 2, I'm going to plug in 2 for x. Remember, it's negative x, so that makes it negative 2 plus 7. I can put that in my calculator, or I know that the positives have an advantage by 5. So when x is positive 2 for this equation, y is always going to be 5. And then I'm going to come over here and graph it on my coordinate plane because I have a pair of ordered pairs. So when x is negative 2 means to go back 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And when x is negative 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. My board's a little off today. When x is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. When x is 1, positive 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if you notice, my dots are making a line, and this time they're going down. So that would be a negative slope. X is positive 2, y is 5, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now I'm going to take that straight edge, that ruler, I'm going to bring it down here, and I'm going to line it up, and if I notice, this time the ruler's going the opposite direction as the first one. So this line will have a negative slope. And I'm going to come up here and get my pencil tool, line it up with that ruler, and I'm going to go straight down from one side of the graph to the other side, because I could keep putting these points on this line. This has a slope of 1, negative 1, so I could keep putting points. So that's why we draw that line even longer. And because mine didn't have an arrow at the other end, there we go. And that's the line for this equation, y equals negative x plus 7. So what I want you to do, oh, we got one more, sorry, I forgot about that. Alright, so for this one, we have y equals negative 2 times x plus 6. So for my first one, I've got negative 2, remember this means to multiply when they're side by side, times negative 4 plus 6. And I can stick that right in my calculator, negative 2 times negative 4 plus 6. And the calculator will do my order of operations for me. And I get a 14. And then for my next one, y equals negative 2 times x this time is a negative 3 plus 6. And that will give me, stick it in my calculator, negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6 plus 6 is 12. And I forgot to write this order pair down. When x is negative 4, y is 14. And for this one, when x is negative 3, y is 12. I'm going to keep going. Y equals negative 2. This time x is 0. Plus 6. Negative 2 times 0 is 0. Plus 6 is 6. So when x is 0, y is 6. Y equals negative 2 times x. X is a 2 this time. Plus 6. Negative 2 times positive 2 is a negative 4. Plus 6 is a positive 2. So when x is 2, y is 2. And the last one, y equals negative 2 times x is 5 this time, plus 6. 2 times a negative 2 times 5 is a negative 10, plus 6 is a negative 4. So when x is 5, y is negative 4. And I'm going to plot my points over here. If you notice, I don't have room. If I go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I can't do these first two. So I'm going to go to the next one. When x is 0, y is positive 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there it is. And positive 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And positive 5, negative 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to line up my ruler, and I'm going to draw a straight line going directly through these points. That's what happens when I don't use my ruler. And we go from one end of the graph to the other end. I'm going to put my arrow up here because this tells me that it goes on and on. So make sure you have arrows at the end of the line saying, letting somebody know that this line goes on and on. And again, this is a negative slope. So what I want you to do next is I have 1, 2, 3, 4 for you to do. And what I suggest is you make a little XY table right here. You don't have to show the work. You can use your calculator. And what I would suggest is start with negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, and 3. For each one, use those same values for your x. Negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, positive 1, positive 2, and positive 3. And some of them may be way too far off the graph. You want to make sure you have at least 2 points on the graph. I like 3 if I can. All right, and if you have any questions, please write them down, and we'll talk about them in class tomorrow.